One, we don't know if DEI played any role in the hiring and of any of the people involved in the crash or training. Two, we're all old enough to remember when people waited a while after the bodies had already been recovered before they started politicizing three. And number three, and I think this may be the most important part, that the Obama and Biden policies as it related to the FAA and hiring are absolutely insane. Tell me why she's wrong.
So I do agree that the Trump administration probably should have waited a little longer before they started politicizing the whole thing and talking about DEI and all this stuff. Probably should have waited a little bit, maybe a couple days or a week or something. But I do think that the left also politicizes things right after they happen. Just look at every mass shooting that's happened in the past decade. They immediately start talking about gun control, and the gun activists come out of the woodworks, and you know how it goes. It's always the same way with the left whenever a shooting happens.
Well, the third one, we need to delve more into that. That doesn't mean that there's a correlation between what just happened, the tragedy.
No, it doesn't. But nobody's defending the Obama-Biden policies. Everybody's saying it's too early, we don't know, on and on. But the fact remains that the FAA was hiring people based on things other than, are you the best to keep planes from crashing into each other, period.
I'm going to show you guys an article talking about this exact thing, just so we have some context. All right, so here's an article from Newsweek talking about the DEI and the FAA. It is, did the FAA reject air traffic controllers based on race? What do we know? Now, this was published on January 31st of this year. I'm going to read it out to you guys. I thought this was pretty interesting because it's going to give some context on what they're talking about in this interview, so you guys don't get lost. So I'm going to start reading now. A major class action lawsuit has been filed against the federal agency over claims that applications for air traffic controllers were rejected based on race. The original lawsuit was filed on behalf of Andrew Brigida, who claimed the FAA under the Obama administration dropped a skill-based system for hiring air traffic controllers and replaced it with a biographical assessment, which was allegedly used to attract more minority applicants. Brigida, who is white and scored a perfect 100% on his training exam, said he was discriminated against because of his race when his application was rejected. Now, in 2014, January, Brigida received an email informing him that the FAA was implementing changes to improve and streamline the hiring process for air traffic controllers, that his application was impacted by these changes. The FAA's biographical assessment was a screening tool used to assess applicants and behaviors and experiences. The test involved multiple choice questions on topics such as decision-making, handling pressure, and risk management. The FAA dropped biographical assessment in 2018 in response to Congress passing a law banning its use. The FAA says on its website that the assessment was removed as a screening tool, and all applicants are now required to take the air traffic skills assessment. FAA lawsuit claims agency discriminated against air traffic controller applicants on the basis of race. Now, this one's a little bit older, but it essentially says the same thing, but it adds a little bit more detail. So the lawyer representing the 1,000 plus, air traffic controllers that were basically gotten rid of during the hiring process, his name is Adam Laxalt. He used to be the attorney general in, I believe, Colorado, and now he works for a firm out there. Laxalt said the lawsuit represents nearly 1,000 people who went to school to become air traffic controllers, which for about 20 years until the end of the Obama administration graduated 100% of the people who went on to work in their field. The individuals Laxalt represents passed the normal test right before the Obama administration, said the class was too white, and threw out the tests with the applicants. So they threw out the tests, and they threw out all the applicants that took the test. So there are only 14,000 air traffic controllers. 1,000 were scrapped a decade ago. It's referring to the Obama situation. And the bottom line is they've never made up for losing all of this pipeline. The backup may never be made up, he said, questioning the standards the FAA currently uses to fill the gap. Laxalt reiterated that the class that was thrown out was too white. As a result, he said the FAA put together a new test that created a biographical test with the intent of adding more African Americans to the air traffic applicant pool. The change also included a question that if the applicant did poorly in math, they would get extra points on the biographical test. That's insane. Never mind how insulting it was that the government was concluding that this is a way to pull up African Americans into their air traffic control ranks, but that's all there. Laxalt said they did the test to change the applicant pool. The lawsuit is, here's the kicker, the part I want you to pay attention to. The lawsuit is based on Title VII, which dates back to 1964 and makes it illegal for anyone to discriminate on the basis of race or gender when hiring. In case you don't know what Title VII is, Title VII is the 1964 Civil Rights Act. That is what this case is based on. So if they win this case, my question to you guys is, does this make DEI illegal? I've actually talked about this in a previous video, not specifically about Civil Rights Act, but I did talk about how DEI should be illegal because discrimination is already basically illegal. It has never been legal, not never been, but it hasn't been legal to discriminate during the hiring process since about the 1960s when the Civil Rights Act was passed. I'm pretty sure that's true. So that to me means that the DEI hiring process is illegal because DEI is discrimination. Because DEI is discrimination. That is discrimination in the hiring process. Because somebody explained to me, how do you fight discrimination in the hiring process? Now, you could put a sign in the bathroom that says employees must wash their hands, but you don't know if they're going to wash their hands until you put a camera in there or you have somebody standing there and watch people go to the sink and wash their hands. Now, if you're a dude in HR and someone just tells you, hey, you need to read this DEI thing and make sure you're doing that. Okay. Well, how do they force them to do that? You give them a quota because that's the only way you can actually force people to not discriminate. But that's literally what you're doing. If you got to fill the quota, that means if there's too many white people applying versus any other minority, that means you got to discriminate against some of the white people and probably some of the other people too. So DEI, the hiring process with DEI included, is discrimination, which makes it illegal. I hope I explained that well. All right, we're going to go back to this video and see what more nonsense she has to say.
Well, the way that you're framing this right now, I agree with Julian on most of what she had to say. And you're right, we are old enough to remember when folks would give condolences first, make sure investigations happen. People just lost their family, their friends, their coworkers, and the president did not do a presidential thing.
We stipulated all that, Nina. You're stonewalling here.
But
tell me why the FAA. No, hold on. You are stonewalling. Hold on. Tell me why the FAA putting out guidance that they want to hire people not best on best and brightest, and changing their standards and lowering their standards is a good thing.
Leland, now hold on. You know me. I never stonewall. First of all, this is not the if he wants to investigate what the Biden and Obama administrations did, then do that. But give a moment. My only point is this: give a moment for the family and the friends.
Stipulated.
Now,
answer my question.
If in fact there were some policies within the Biden and the Obama administration that are not up to par, then let's have that discussion. All I'm simply saying is that throwing every DEI at everything is not the way to get at the fixes that are needed. That is what
Well,
I am saying.
if we can't acknowledge, okay, and these are claims from Adam Laxalt, who sued the FAA, and there's reasons to believe that they're true based on the documents.
Well, we can sue for
2,000
anything,
qualified
Leland.
controllers not hired due to DEI. The Obama
How does he
administration
know?
threw out aptitude tests because the tests changed. The way they picked controllers changed, and the standards were lowered so they could give preferences to people based on race and other criteria. Yes, they were.
You know what? Now, we want to talk about preferences based on race. Now, since you want to go there, Leland, we're going to go there. For the inception of this country, preferences have been given.
Wow. See, this is what happens whenever lefties don't have an argument to present to counter your argument. This is what they do, especially the black activists, lefties. They start doing the whole slavery thing, the whole generational wealth, we didn't have a chance thing. They always do that. They don't have an argument. That's what they do. They go back 200 years. It's always like that. They don't have an argument. If they start doing that, you can just ignore it because they don't have anything to say, basically.
Oh, come on. No, I'm asking right now.
Leland, now, what I am saying to you is that all of this negative DEI talk makes it seem as though Black people in particular, and then other people of color in general, or people who are otherly able, cannot get jobs based on merit. I don't have a problem with the Trump administration digging through the Biden administration or the Obama administration to find what they see as flaws. What I do have a problem with, Leland, is this blanketed notion that if a Black person or other person of color obtains a job at the highest heights, that somehow it was not based on merit.
This is the mayor in New York, not New York. This is the mayor in New York. We're going to go ahead and watch the whole clip. This is the Costco thing that was happening with Reverend Al Sharpton. He's leading the Costco buy-in where no one bought anything. We're going to go ahead and watch the whole clip, but I want you to pay attention to what he says at the end of the clip. That's the most interesting part. And then we're going to go back and listen again to what she said, because what he's saying is completely contradicting what she says.
What DEI does and did, not just for African Americans, but for many people, was allow people the opportunity to use their skills that they studied, that they practiced, in fields that they were denied. And this is that opportunity, right? And so what they've done is flipped it to mean that people are not qualified, that they don't deserve their jobs, and that's just not true.
To follow up, how would you respond to somebody who says we should be hiring strictly on merit and not on DEI or other qualities like that?
We are hiring
Isn't
on
DEI more than just, it's diversity, equity, inclusion, not merit? There's no merit in there.
Yes, it is merit. The merit is the fact that we worked hard, we went to school. We studied, we have experience. The problem is that there's been barriers for us to get in specific fields. And what DEI does is remove those barriers, remove those obstacles.
We've seen rollbacks to affirmative action in 2023. The Supreme Court's been rolling back things like this. What do you think the future of DEI and other sort of programs like this will be in our country?
America is slowly and surely becoming a country that is of mixed race, a country that is people of color. Slowly and surely. So in a minute, people saying they don't want diversity, equity, inclusion is going to be talking about they don't want American families. American families are not the same as they were. American families are mixed. They come from mixed cultures, mixed backgrounds, mixed people. And our economy can't grow unless we see everybody in it and we include folks in our economy.
Absolutely.
Right? So it has this whole argument about merit is a thin veil to uphold racism and white supremacy.
So did you catch what he said at the end? He said the problem is that there's barriers for us to get into fields. DEI removes those barriers. The argument about merit is a thin veil to uphold racism and white supremacy. So what she's saying is the negative talk by the right and the Trump administration and MAGA, the negative talk of DEI gives the notion that Black people and other minorities can't get jobs without DEI. But if you listen to what the mayor of Newark said, he said the opposite. He said that merit upholds racism and white supremacy. So it is not the right that is saying these things. It is their own people that are they're literally doing this to themselves, and they're saying that we're doing it.
That is my problem.
You're conflating something.
No, I'm not.
Hold on. You talk. Now let me make a point. I have not heard from the Trump administration. I've listened to every one of Donald Trump's press conferences since he took office. I listened to all Pete Hegseth's press conferences and Sean Duffy's. I didn't hear any of them say that if somebody who was black, blue, red, green, short, tall, female, male, whatever, got a job, it was because of lowered standards. I didn't hear that. You're changing the goalposts.
They are saying that.
No, they didn't.
They are saying that. It is called a dog whistle. They are saying that. In 2020, it was Black Lives Matter, right? In 2022, it was CRT. In 2024, it was woke. And now in 2025, it is DEI. All of that is
you just can't give it, but you're the one making this about race. They're the ones making it about merit.
They're the one that's making Leland. They're the ones that are making this about race. Now I didn't know you want to do this dance with me tonight. You should have told me I would have wore different dance shoes. They are making this about race. Every time I turn around, they're talking about DEI. They're making this about race.
So she is conflating. The Trump administration has not said anything about that. What they have said is that the process of DEI is a problem because essentially it is discriminatory. And what they want to do is change the process of DEI and make it into a meritocracy instead of based on race and sex and gender and all of these things that's associated with DEI. Now, DEI was created basically to combat discrimination, but if you need to use DEI to bring in more minorities, let's say, for example, if you have more white people that apply for a certain job, extremely more versus any other minority, and let's say it's not enough minorities to fill the quotas, but you have this excess of white applicants, then what do you have to do? You're going to have to discriminate against the white applicants. If you need more of the minority applicants, which are not there. So essentially you would have to discriminate in order to meet the quota if there is one. Now, you have to demonstrate that you are using the DEI process in your hiring, because the way to determine that you aren't is if essentially apparently if the ATCs are too white, it's not diverse enough. So that means you have to hire more minorities. Like I said, essentially is discrimination. And I believe DEI, and I've said this before, I believe DEI should have been illegal and should have been struck down years ago. Because under the Civil Rights Act of 1964, it is illegal to discriminate in the hiring process. And DEI, essentially, if you look at the whole scheme, essentially the DEI hiring process is discrimination, combating discrimination. Because leftists like to say DEI is used to combat discrimination, is used to fight discrimination in the hiring process, because apparently hiring based on merit by default is racist, because I guess either black people have no credentials or everything by default is racist. It's either one of the two, because it's either one of the two or it's both in the leftist mindset.